How Giving Thanks Can Grow Your Business, Episode 53. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the Firm Differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Profit with Law. I am your host, Moshe Amsel, and this is the pre-Thanksgiving episode, and I figured what better way to go into Thanksgiving than to have an episode talking about giving thanks. But I don't want this to be something that you just fast forward and skip over. I am going to make this absolutely relevant to the growth of your law firm, and we are going to talk specifically about giving thanks in context to how thanks can help you with growing your firm. Before I jump into this episode, I want to take a moment to once again talk about the upcoming Law Firm Growth Summit. We're running a virtual summit. It's completely online. It is a conference that's going to have everything that you can possibly want for running and growing your law practice. We're going to have somebody talking about that. We have 5 days, 5 tracks: marketing, sales, leadership and team development, technology and process implementation, and financials. 31, maybe 32 speakers remains to be determined. It's possible we'll end up with just a little over 30, but 30 plus amazing speakers are going to be gracing us with their presence and their knowledge to help us with making our firms better, growing our firms, whether you need to focus on marketing, whether you need to focus on sales, whether you need to focus on any of these areas that I mentioned. We're going to have a day jam-packed with sessions for you. And the beautiful thing is that it's online. It's free. You don't need to leave your home or your office. You don't have to go anywhere. And you have 24 hours to watch each of the sessions from when they go live. In addition, if you can't just make that work into your schedule, you could purchase an all-access pass, and it's very affordable. When you sign up, it's offered at $97. So when you go to register, just be ready for that. If that's an option that you want, there's a number of extra bonuses that we throw in there with that. In addition, if you want to get CLE credit for any of the tracks, you need to attend a full track in order to do that, but you have to purchase the All Access Pass in order to be able to get CLE credit. So just make sure that you're aware of that when you go to register. But what better way to and that's at lawfirmgrowthsummit.com, lawfirmgrowthsummit.com. You can either write it down, go to it right now and just enter your name and email address, or you can go to the show notes of this episode at profitwithlaw.com/053, or simply look at the description in your podcast player, and there should be a link there to the Law Firm Growth Summit, which you can just click on. But I wanted to start my Thanksgiving episode here by expressing my thank you to the speakers and the sponsors of the summit, because without them, this opportunity would not be possible for me to give to you. And the sponsors I'm going to mention by name, because it's a short list and I'm not going to take too much of your time. And those sponsors are Smith AI, Law Clerk, GNGF, and Attorney Sync. For more information, when you go to Law Firm Growth Summit, we have a sponsors page. You can check out everything about them. We're also going to talk about them in more detail in upcoming episodes. But first of all, thank you so much to our sponsors who have invested in you. They have fronted some of the cost of this summit in order to help us bring it to you and provide it to you absolutely free. So we want to thank them for that. The next thing is I would like to thank each of our speakers, because these speakers have, first of all, had to deal with me for the last God knows how long, few months, as I've rallied the speakers, rallied the troops. They've been gracious enough to say yes, and they are providing their time. They're volunteering their time to be with you and to impart this amazing knowledge to you. And it's unbelievable how amazing this legal community is, that I was able to meet a lot of these people for the first time. Some of them I had relationships with already, but a lot of them met them for the first time, just connected through one of these relationships, and they were gracious enough to not only volunteer their time, but also to be willing to promote it, to be willing to attend some of the live portions that are going to happen outside of their sessions, so the welcome party and the Q&A sessions, and there's going to be some really cool stuff happening. We're also going to be doing a number of giveaways, and many of them are going to be participating in that as well. So these are amazing people, and I can only express my gratitude here publicly in a forum that hopefully they will know how I feel about them. So thank you to all of you amazing speakers for gracing our stage, and I am so excited for December 16th. It is right around the corner, and it's just a lot of anticipation here, and I cannot wait. So enough about the summit. Let's jump into talking about giving thanks. Now, what I wanted to start off with or open with is that giving thanks requires acknowledging the need for thanks. In other words, you have to recognize that there's something to say thank you for in order to give thanks. And that's the beginning of the challenge. Is so often we make progress, we make incremental progress towards our goals or towards something, and we don't take the time to recognize the progress that we've made. We don't take the time to look in our rearview mirror and see how far we've come. And then it becomes difficult to recognize that there is a reason to give thanks, or that there is a situation to say thank you for. So part of the thank you process requires self-reflection. And that's going to be a common thread as I go through these items to share with you, that we need to take the time to reflect on where we stand in each of these categories. And that's probably the hardest part of this whole thing, is to stop and pause and really think about this and really recognize that there's a need for saying thank you. So, first of all, our health. We wake up every day. It's a miracle that we wake up. And I don't want to be cliche about this, but the strength that we need to go through the day, the perseverance that's required as a business owner, day in, day out, week in, week out. Some of us have difficulty with sleeping. Some of us have difficulty with eating. Some of us have struggles with other diseases and chronic disorders that may be hereditary or maybe because of our lifestyle. And at the end of the day, we're still here. It's almost the end of 2019, and if you're listening to this, you're still here. And we have to be thankful for that. And this is less about thanking other people and more about just recognizing what contribution we have made to our entire health profile, and really looking at that and saying, I'm really, really grateful that I'm here today. And I'm really grateful that I'm healthy, or at least healthy enough to be listening to this podcast, right? And when you take that reflection, you can also reflect on how you could have taken more steps to improve that health profile, to extend your lifespan, to make your existence a more peaceful one. We all have habits that contribute to our health. And they could be good habits or they could be bad habits. And this is the moment to sit back and look and say, were these habits good for me or were they bad for me? And if they were good for me, how do I make sure to reinforce this and make sure I continue it for the upcoming year? And if they were bad habits, what kind of steps can I take to try to curb the habit, to try to stop it, to try to replace it with a better habit, with a good one? The best way to be thankful for the health that we have is to be intentional about helping to maintain that health. It's not entirely in our control, and I recognize that, and I want to make sure that you understand that the purpose of this is not to try to change what's outside of our control, but to be thankful for being given what's outside of our control, but also to be thankful for the things that are in our control, and we were able to succeed and maintain and do the things that we needed to do. So the next thing after health is success, which I also call progress, right? Because often we make positive progress towards a goal or towards a vision or a direction that we want to go, but we haven't quite defined it as success yet. For example, I spoke at the beginning of this episode about the upcoming virtual summit that we have. This is the first time that we're running the summit. For all I know, in 2 weeks' time, that summit's going to run and we have nobody attend it. Now, obviously, I've done a lot of things over the last few months to ensure or to try to ensure that that doesn't happen. However, it's out of my control. The only thing I can control is whether I took the steps to put the summit together, to put it on, whether I took the steps to promote it, whether I took the steps to get it in front of the people who need it so that they could sign up and attend it, right? So I made progress towards that goal. However, I personally don't define it as success yet. Now, other people would look at it and say, well, you raised over $25,000 in sponsorships, so therefore, that should be that I define that as success, right? Where I look at it and say, well, it cost me, $50,000 or $75,000 to put on, and I raised $25,000, so I had part of my cost defrayed, but I haven't yet successfully put on the event, right? So different people define success in different ways. So that's why I think it's important to say success and progress. Right. So it's start with the self-reflection. Like I said earlier, in order to determine whether we need to give thanks, requires us to take some self-reflection. And we do such a terrible job as business owners to look back at the actions we've taken and at the progress that we've made and celebrating that progress. So if you haven't done it all year, now take a moment to sit down and really think about, where were you a year ago? How big was your firm? How many clients were you serving? What kind of problems were you dealing with? Did you have staffing issues that you've since resolved? Did you have customer satisfaction issues that you've since resolved? Did you not have marketing in place and now you do? Did you have horrible sales close rates, but now they've improved? You've improved the process. I guarantee you, if you think about it, if you reflect on it, you will find threads of progress in your practice. Now, it could be that progress was small. It could also be that the progress was huge. Now, if it's big enough, you probably know about it without needing to reflect on it. But often, it's even the small things that if we would just know where we were. I heard on a podcast that I listened to. So I listened to Eventual Millionaire by Jamie Tardy. She got married. It used to be Jamie Masters. Now she's got married. It's Jamie Tardy. Eventual Millionaire. Great podcast. Anyway, she was interviewing somebody, and they were talking about this idea of failing to recognize how far we've come. And the person that she was interviewing was saying that 10 years ago, she started to do this thing where she documented once a year everything all the progress she had made that year in her business and where she was at. And what happened is that it created this kind of like time capsule that she could go back to and look at and see incrementally over time how much progress she's made. And if she wouldn't have taken the time to do that, she wouldn't have been able to look back and say, oh my goodness, I can't believe that I was, wasting time on worrying about this back in, 7 years ago. Or, I don't even remember that I struggled with this 8 years ago. But going back and looking at it, it's a reminder of how much progress has been made and where she used to be. So I really liked the idea of that, and I think I'm going to start to implement it for myself. So that just might be an idea for you too. And when do you remember to do it? I mean, the best way is to either remember to do it around Thanksgiving or around New Year's, because those, are by nature times of self-reflection, end of year wrap up, beginning of the new year. So it's a new beginning. Those are really good times to do an exercise like that to make sure that you're doing it regularly every year. So I think it's important to look at your success, look at your progress, and recognize how far you've come. And yes, you need to be thankful to God or wherever you believe that your divine inspiration and, and hand holding in this journey comes from, but also be thankful to yourself for your intuition, for your grit, for your ability to stay with it and create that progress and success over the course of the last year. And take the time to acknowledge yourself for the hard work that you've done. Now, if there are other people involved in that progress and in that success, then that also needs to be celebrated. But don't skimp and leave yourself out of it. So let's talk about what those other people in your life bring to you. Now, obviously, there's I'm going to go through this list, and some of them, there's a gazillion other things to be thankful for, but in the context of your business, your family plays a role. Your family plays a role. Your friends play a role. Now, they might not be involved in your day-to-day business, but perhaps if you don't have friends to spend Sunday with watching football, you would not have that stress relief that you need to be successful in the following week. If you didn't have your children to motivate you to keep moving forward, perhaps you would not have succeeded as much as you did. I had mentioned in previous podcast episodes that most of my success in my career path was driven by necessity that was created by my responsibility of becoming a husband and becoming a father and needing to provide for my family. So I have them to thank, as strange as it sounds, for being my motivator to move forward in a positive way. So family and friends are one, but then what about business contacts? Now, business contacts, there's a lot of possibilities here, right? So there's other peers in industry. So there's other attorneys, and then there's vendors that we deal with. There's people that we meet at networking events. So there's just business contacts that we meet in passing or try to maintain relationships with. There's clients, and then there's referral partners, people who are referring us business. All of those business contacts, we need to look at those contacts and recognize them, and thank them for their involvement. Now, this could be a very big job if you're literally picking up the phone and calling them or sending them emails or sending them cards. But I want to talk a minute about how are you thanking these people. If you thank them in your mind, if you thank them internally, that's really healthy and it's good, and that's a start. But it's even better if they know that you appreciate them. If they know that you appreciate what result was created or how much they helped you, and if they don't know about it, then they don't know necessarily to repeat that in the future. And this is the linchpin. This is the key right here to why I titled this episode around growing your firm and why thanks is so important around growing your firm. Because how you decide to thank the people who are motivating you, to thank the people who are bringing you referrals, to thank the people who you're passing cases to that you can handle, and they're passing cases to you that they can't handle or need help with, right? How you thank those people is going to directly affect the future of your business. So I want to spend just a couple of minutes on something very simple. You might have heard about it before. There's this concept of the 5 love languages by Dr. Chapman, and the 5 love languages are, I'm just going to pull them up in front of me: words of affirmation, receiving gifts, quality time, acts of service, and touch. Now, physical touch. Now, physical touch is obviously something that is going to be a no-no in the business world. So there is actually a separate book, The 5 Love Languages for Business. I have not read it. I plan to. So I don't know how he deals with words with physical touch in that book and what he replaces it with, or how he explains it. But let's stick to the other 4, right? So words of affirmation is very simply telling somebody that they helped you. So thanking them and telling them that they helped you. Receiving gifts is basically giving a gift to somebody so they receive it. And when they receive the gift, that's how they know that you love them. That's how they know that you are acknowledging them for something that they've done. Quality time is spending quality time with somebody, and acts of service are where you do something for somebody else in an act of service. And in the business world, what this might look like is you sending business somebody's way, making an introduction, giving them a lead, giving them a referral, might be inviting them to a networking event or some other event where they will learn something to grow their business. You're obviously bringing them there or taking them there or sending them there for their own good and not necessarily for your own good. So these 4 aspects of the 5 love languages are a great way to think about how would you like to say thanks to the people who have impacted you in a positive way over the last year. And the challenge is that it's hard to get all 4 of these love languages in the same effort. So that's why we had, on a previous episode, we had Getting Referrals Without Asking by Stacy Randall. And I got to check what the episode number was. We'll throw that in the show notes. But if you go back in the podcast, you'll find it in one of the earlier episodes. She talks about this at length. I'm not sure if she actually mentions the love languages, but talks about creating a system for your referrals and your referral sources, and then acting on that system throughout the year. So the idea here is that you could have something that touches on 2 of these love languages, but if you do multiple efforts to say thank you throughout the year, you might be able to touch on all 4 of them throughout those efforts. So that's something to really start thinking about is, hey, now's the time to reflect on it and recognize that there's something that you needed to do. You needed to say thank you where you might not have, or you might not have done it in a way that was effective. But now you might realize that, hey, I need to do this with more than just one effort. But this pays dividends in the long run exponentially. Just put yourself on the receiving end of it. Imagine, I'm sure that you have made an intro for somebody in the past or provided a referral for somebody where you wondered, hey, I wonder if that was helpful for that person. They might have thanked you initially, but you never heard anything back from them. And now imagine that they came back to you and said, oh my goodness, I can't believe that you introduced me to so-and-so. I am so grateful for it. You have no idea whether it turned into a client or not, right? If it turned into a client or it turned into something positive, then they'll tell you, how amazing it was. But even if not, that if they tell you how amazing it was that you thought of them and that you, kept them in mind, and, just saying that, what that would make you feel like. Now imagine that in addition, they gave you a gift that was thoughtful, that doesn't have to be something expensive. It just has to be something that made it obvious that they were thinking about you in a way that they wanted to thank you, or if they sat down with you and had coffee or lunch and, took the time then to thank you. That's the quality time aspect. Or if they sent a lead your way, said, listen, or made an intro for you and said, I want to thank you for what you've done for me. I now have this opportunity that I think would be good for you, and I'd love to make that introduction for you. So this is just stuff to think about. I probably want to spend a full episode talking about the love languages and how that translates into the workplace and into what we do in our law firms, both in this aspect as well as on the employee side, right? So imagine how much power you would have as an employer if you knew what made each of your employees tick as far as acknowledging them for good work. Believe it or not, there are people who telling them they did a good job verbally does nothing to make them feel good. If their words of affirmation is at a 0, then it doesn't help to say, hey, good job on that project. Good job on getting that client. Congrats. We're very happy. That, so that's really important. And I think I'm going to spend time in the future on that. But for now, use this as just a basic barometer gauge on figuring out how to go ahead and say thanks. And if you're listening to this before Thanksgiving or even after, I want to take this last moment to thank you. I want to thank you for listening to this episode. If you're a subscriber and you listen to all the episodes or you're here every week with me, I want to thank you so much for voting to fill your time with the content that I'm producing. I'm not doing it for the fun of it. I do enjoy it, but I'm not doing it just for the fun of it. I am trying to help people. I'm trying to impact the world in a positive way. And your choice to listen to me is my fuel to continue that journey. And I want to thank you for that. And I also want to thank you if you're one of the people who have gone into iTunes or into the Google Play Store or any of the other places to provide ratings and reviews for the show. If you're one of the people who have gone and given us a 5-star rating, even if you gave us less than 5 stars, but I don't think we got less than 5 stars yet. But I want to appreciate you and thank you from the bottom of my heart for doing that, because that helps other people decide that this is something worth trying out. So I want to thank you. And if you haven't done it yet, I'm thanking you in advance for the actions that you're going to take. And if you're appreciating this show, one of the things that you can do is thank me by going and leaving that review so that I get the feedback, so I get the acknowledgement, and I know that I'm on the right path and you want me to continue to produce this and to continue this effort. But I don't want to make this all about me, and I don't want to make this all about rating and reviewing the show. But I genuinely want to thank you for choosing to listen to this show and for being here. And if you have any specific topics, contents, questions that you want asked, that you want answered on this show, please drop me a line. I'll put right in the description of this episode my email address. It's mamsel@dreambuilderfinancial.com. That's mamsel@dreambuilderfinancial.com. Send me an email and let me know what that question is. Let me know what the topic is, and I would love to make a podcast episode out of it for you and bring it to you here. So once again, thank you. Everybody have a very, very happy Thanksgiving. And until next week, let's just enjoy the holiday. Enjoy the time off. Enjoy your friends and family. And just eat some delicious, good food. And I'll see you soon. Have you been enjoying the show? We sure hope so. To make sure you never miss an episode, be sure to hit the subscribe button in your podcast player app. Next week, we will be back with more valuable resources and ideas on how to break the mold and take your law firm to the next level.